Welcome back, everyone. Let's jump right into today's explainer, which focuses on a truly stunning cinematic narrative called Amazon, the Forest That Remembers Everything. We're going to be tracing the Amazon's path from its absolutely ancient, untouched roots all the way through to the incredibly complex challenges it's facing right now. Now, think about this for a second. What if a forest could remember every single event in its history? Right? It's the kind of question that just totally reframes how you look at things. We aren't just talking about a collection of trees, vines, and rivers here. We are stepping into a living, breathing ecosystem, one that has literally acted as a silent witness to centuries of profound, world-altering change. It asks us to look at history not just through human eyes, but through the memory of the Earth itself. Part 1. The Ancient Amazon, a pristine wilderness before contact. To really wrap our heads around the ancient Amazon, we're going to ground ourselves in the perspective of a young indigenous boy named Kai. Way before any global contact, this was a place defined by just vast, pristine beauty. Kai's tribe lived surrounded by a totally thriving web of wildlife. They navigated this endless, intricate system of rivers that were basically the lifeblood and the highways of their entire world. This is a look at a deep-rooted, ancient indigenous culture living in absolute natural harmony. The forest gave them everything they needed to survive, and they gave it deep respect right back. Part 2. 1542. The strangers arrive, the turning point in history. The year 1542. This specific date is an abrupt, honestly shattering pivot point for this entire region. That harmonious world Kai and his tribe knew, it was forever altered the moment Francisco de Orellana arrived, becoming the very first European explorer to navigate the length of the Amazon River. Just imagine standing on that riverbank, looking out at the water you've known your entire life, and suddenly these massive, strange vessels just emerge from the mist. In a single year, everything flipped upside down. We're talking about the profound reality of first contact, the initial meeting of two completely separate cultures. But seeing this through Kai's eyes, you realize this wasn't just some historical milestone you jot down in a textbook. It brought unimaginably deep mystery and terrifying new survival challenges. We're talking about the sudden arrival of strangers from distant lands with vastly different intentions. It was this overwhelming wave of mystery and an immediate fight for survival crashing into a world that had literally been stable for generations. Part 3. Centuries of Upheaval, Exploration, Trade, and Deforestation. What we're tracking here is a relentless domino effect. It kicks off with Orellana's initial contact in 1542, but man, it definitely doesn't stop there. By the 1700s, you have this era of expanding exploration, aggressively mapping the deep jungle. Then, moving into the 1800s, there's the rise of global trade. That was driven by massive commodity booms, like rubber, which basically started treating the forest as this limitless resource to just extract from. Hit the 1900s, and heavy industrial technology comes into play, bringing accelerating deforestation on a totally unprecedented scale. Which brings us to the 2000s, facing a modern environmental crisis. At every single step of this arc, the challenges for Native communities just relentlessly compounded. The contrast between these two realities is pretty jarring. On one hand, you have the ancient Amazon. We're talking untouched environment, indigenous sovereignty, and that natural harmony Kai knew so well. Contrast that with the modern Amazon, which is heavily impacted by global trade, ongoing deforestation, and incredibly complex survival struggles. That pristine wilderness was fundamentally reshaped by centuries of exploitation, and it's brought us to a really critical crossroads today. Part 4. Protecting the forest's future, Conservation and Respect. So, what can the past teach us about the Amazon's future? As we process this dramatic history and the lessons from Kai's journey through centuries of upheaval, we can't just sit back as passive observers. We have to figure out how to actively and intentionally shape what happens next to this vital ecosystem. Actually shaping that future requires some deliberate action. First up, we need to learn from the ancient harmony of indigenous tribes like Haikais. They genuinely understood how to live with the forest rather than just extracting from it. Second, we absolutely have to acknowledge the centuries of environmental upheaval and the heavy impact of global trade, because, let's face it, we can't fix a problem we refuse to confront. And finally, there has to be an active commitment to protecting nature and respecting indigenous cultures today. When it comes down to it, the survival of the Amazon depends entirely on respecting its past and honoring its people. The emotional weight of this history teaches us a really profound lesson. The forest remembers everything.
It remembers every cut tree and displaced community, sure, but also every ancient tradition and moment of natural balance. Our modern duty is to make sure it has a future that's actually worth remembering. I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. When the forest eventually remembers our present era, what story will it tell? Will our actions today be remembered as just another chapter of relentless destruction? Or are we going to be the defining moment when the forest was finally respected and saved? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this cinematic look at the Amazon leaves you inspired to keep exploring.